On a quiet street, a racist gang member stands with his group of friends next to a parked pickup truck, their loud voices breaking the peace of the neighborhood. They laugh and joke, reveling in their own arrogance when suddenly, his eyes lock onto a man walking down the sidewalk, Mike Tyson. A surge of misplaced confidence rushes through him. This is his chance to prove himself, to assert his so-called superiority over the neighborhood. With a smirk, he raises his voice, hurling insults at Mike, hoping to provoke a reaction. But Mike? He doesn't even flinch. He keeps walking, completely unfazed. That silence stings. The gang member clenches his fists, his ego bruised. He steps forward, shouting louder, "Your mama, you coward!" Then he turns back to his friends, laughing triumphantly, convinced that he's won this little exchange. But what he doesn't realize is that he just made the worst mistake of his life. Unaware that he has just triggered a powerful opponent. Subscribe and like this video to see how the story unfolds. Mike Tyson, the legendary boxer, a man known worldwide, walks down the street with a calm, effortless stride. Despite his fame, despite the larger-than-life image the world has of him, today, he chooses anonymity. There's a certain peace in blending in being just another man enjoying a quiet afternoon. The city hums with life around him. The distant chatter of pedestrians, the rhythmic honking of passing cars, the occasional laughter of children playing nearby. For a moment, Mike Tyson is simply a man, not a legend. As he continues his leisurely stroll, his eyes catch something, a street vendor stationed at the corner, the irresistible aroma of freshly made food drifting through the air. Delicious. What happens next? Well, you're about to find out. Drawn by the tantalizing aroma of freshly fried churros, Tyson slows his pace, his attention fully captured. The sweet, cinnamon-scented air lingers as he steps toward the vendor, his movements unhurried, his presence undeniable. With a warm, disarming smile, he gestures toward the golden, crispy treats and asks, "How much for one, brother?" The street vendor, now fully registering who stands before him, is momentarily stunned. Mike Tyson. The very name carries a weight of history, of dominance, of resilience. And now, here he is, standing just feet away, speaking to him like an old friend. A rush of excitement floods the vendor's chest. He doesn't see just a legendary fighter. He sees a man who carries the scars of battles both inside and outside the ring, a man who has inspired millions. Without hesitation, the vendor grins broadly and hands Tyson a churro. "It's on me, champ. Big fan," he says, his voice filled with genuine admiration. For him, this moment isn't about money. It's about respect. And what better way to show it than with a small, heartfelt gesture? Tyson smiles, accepting the gift. He appreciates the kindness. He always has. But as he takes his first bite, savoring the crispy sweetness, something shifts in the background. The gang member is still watching, still waiting, still itching for trouble. The thought alone brings a smile to Tyson's face. The idea of surprising the young boxers, of seeing their eyes light up with inspiration, makes him eager to reach his destination. His pace quickens slightly, his mind focused on the moment ahead. But just a few yards away, Chad, brash, cocky, and fueled by liquid courage, stands with his group of equally inebriated buddies near a parked truck. Their laughter cuts through the peaceful afternoon, loud and obnoxious, a stark contrast to the quiet streets around them. A steady stream of lewd jokes and crude insults flows between them, each remark more arrogant than the last. Their bravado, inflated by alcohol and a false sense of superiority, turns the sidewalk into their personal stage. And then, as if fate itself decides to stir the pot, Chad's eyes land on a figure in the distance. Mike Tyson. The boxing icon strides forward, minding his own business, radiating an aura of quiet confidence. But Chad? He sees an opportunity to show off, to challenge a legend, to prove something, to himself, to his friends, to anyone who's watching. A twisted grin spreads across his face. He's about to make a decision, and it's going to be the worst one of his life. Fueled by liquid courage, Chad straightens up, his chest puffing out as he shifts his gaze from Mike Tyson to his rowdy entourage. He lifts his chin, trying to radiate confidence, though his bravado reeks of overcompensation, the kind that only comes from a man desperately trying to prove something. With a smirk, he gestures toward Tyson and scoffs, his tone dripping with forced arrogance. Look at that guy. Thinks he's all that. Just another punk with muscles. His words hang in the air for a moment before his friends eagerly latch on, their drunken laughter and slurred remarks blending into a chorus of misguided bravado. Chad feels it. The validation, the approval, it emboldens him. Their agreement fuels his ego like gasoline to a flame. He revels in their reactions, mistaking their drunken encouragement for actual strength. And now he's ready to take things further. But what Chad doesn't realize, what none of them realize, is that their target is not just another man. He is Mike Tyson. And the line between ignorance and regret? Chad is about to cross it. Chad turns his jeers directly at Mike Tyson, his words dripping with venom. His voice cuts through the air, loud and mocking. Hey, tough guy, where you headed? The circus? His friends erupt in laughter, their drunken cackles mixing with the hum of passing traffic and the distant sounds of city life. The scent of beer lingers in the air, their bravado thick with arrogance. But Mike Tyson? He doesn't even break stride. His shoulders remain relaxed, his posture effortless, exuding a quiet confidence that needs no validation. Years in the public eye have hardened him to insults like these. He's heard it all. Jeers from critics, taunts from opponents, doubts from the world. This question mark, this is nothing. Tyson keeps moving, his expression unreadable, his focus unwavering. He's not here for them. But Chad sees this as a challenge. He mistakes silence for weakness, and that mistake is about to cost him. Tyson doesn't bite. He maintains his composure, his stride steady, his expression unreadable. He's a man who knows his worth, a man who has nothing to prove to a loud-mouthed buffoon like Chad. His silence isn't weakness, it's control. But Chad? He doesn't see it that way. The lack of reaction stings, cutting through his beer-fueled bravado. He's not used to being ignored. He's spent his life bullying his way through situations, forcing his presence on others, demanding respect through intimidation. And right now, he feels disrespected. With an exaggerated swagger, he surges forward, fueled by liquid courage and misplaced confidence. Tyson's eyes lock onto Chad's. For a brief moment, there is nothing but silence, a tension thick enough to cut through the air. Then, almost casually, Tyson's gaze flickers downward, to the half-eaten churro still in his hand. It's a small movement, almost insignificant. But to those who understand Tyson, it speaks volumes. Chad's crew, however, is oblivious. Their drunken confidence surges as they cheer him on, their laughter ringing out loud and reckless, shattering what little peace remains in the afternoon air. Their voices, coarse and boorish, grind against the stillness like a buzzsaw against silk. And Chad? He feeds off it. His chest puffs up, his shoulders squared, his ego swelling with every chuckle from his posse. In his mind, he's in control. With an expression twisted into smug contempt, he steps even closer. Too close. His lips curl into a malicious sneer, his breath thick with the stench of alcohol as he leans in. His words slither from his mouth like a cobra's hiss, each syllable dripping with venom. But what Chad fails to realize, what his drunken bravado won't let him see, is that he's not staring down just another man. He's standing in the shadow of a lion, and he's about to find out exactly what that means. He crosses the street, his friends behind him, watching, waiting. The tension thickens as he closes the distance, his voice now a mix of irritation and forced bravado. "Hey, I'm talking to you, big guy. You deaf or something?" Tyson's footsteps slow. For the first time, he turns. And in that moment, everything changes. Chad is ready to strike. He leans in closer, his voice dripping with mockery. "Oh, what's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Or maybe—" He sneers, pausing for effect. "Your mama didn't teach you any manners." He lets the insult linger before twisting the knife deeper. "Or wait. Maybe you're just a big, dumb jock who can't even string two words together." His gang erupts in laughter, their fists pumping the air in drunken solidarity. They feed off Chad's bravado, reveling in his brazen display of bullying. But what Chad doesn't notice, what none of them seem to realize, is the growing shift in the atmosphere. A crowd has started to gather. Passers-by, initially indifferent to the scene, now pause in their tracks, drawn in by the rising tension. Their casual strolls interrupted, their conversations halted. All eyes now fix on Chad and Tyson. Gasps ripple through the onlookers like a slow-building wave. Some whisper among themselves, their hushed voices carrying the distinct weight of impending consequence. Because even they know, this isn't going to end well for Chad. And in the center of it all, Tyson stands still, silent, calm, unmoved. But beneath that quiet exterior, a storm is brewing. Calamity looms on the horizon. At the periphery of the growing crowd, an elderly woman, her hands clasped protectively around a basket of fresh flowers, leans toward her neighbor. Her voice is low, trembling with unease. He doesn't know who he's talking to, does he? Her neighbor swallows hard but says nothing, because they both know this isn't just some street altercation. This is a mistake unfolding in real time. Tyson finally moves. With deliberate control, he turns, fully facing Chad for the first time. His eyes, calm yet unreadable, settle on the drunken agitator. The air shifts. Without a word, Tyson extends his hand and sets his half-eaten churro on a nearby bench, as if ensuring it remains undisturbed. Then, with the same measured grace, he dusts off his fingers, one by one, each motion slow, precise, intentional. And then, his stance changes. His shoulders square. His spine lengthens. His posture expands, exuding an aura that is no longer just that of a man minding his business, but of a predator locking onto prey. The crowd feels it. The laughter, the mockery, the drunken bravado. It all starts to fade. Because in that moment, for the first time, Chad realizes he just made the biggest mistake of his life. The shift is undeniable. Tyson now stands fully composed, fully present, exuding the quiet, unshakable confidence of a man who knows exactly what he's capable of. His expression hardens, his gaze locks onto Chad, and in that instant, the air changes. The low murmurs of the crowd? Silenced. Every breath, every movement in the vicinity feels suspended, as if the very atmosphere is holding its breath. And then, his voice cuts through the tension like a blade. "Mike Tyson," a low growl. "What did you just say?" It's not a question. It's a warning. Tyson's hands clench into fists, the veins in his forearms coiling like live wires beneath the sinewy muscle. The raw power in his frame is undeniable. He doesn't have to move. His mere presence is enough to make the onlookers instinctively step back. The moment is balanced on the edge of an eruption. But Chad, he doesn't see it. His brain, dulled by alcohol, clouded by arrogance, fails to process the shift in the air. Instead of backing down, he smirks. He sees Tyson's measured reaction and mistakes it for hesitation. His confidence swells, his ego inflating one final time, just before the inevitable fall. The illusion of control. Chad, drunk on false confidence, mistakes Tyson's stillness for submission. He doesn't recognize the warning signs, the shift in energy, the silence in the crowd, the sheer weight of the moment pressing down on him. Instead, he doubles down. He raises his voice, his words dripping with arrogance, his sneer widening as he pushes his luck with the wrong man. Chad, mocking. "I said, your mama didn't teach you any manners. What, you gonna cry about it? You think you can intimidate me? I'm not scared of you." His gang cheers him on, their drunken jeers ringing through the street. They don't see it either. But the crowd does. The people watching from the sidewalk, from across the street, they know. Because Mike Tyson's stillness isn't hesitation, it's restraint. And then he moves. One step, deliberate, controlled, calculated. A single step forward, closing the distance. And suddenly everything changes. The air tightens, the very world around them shrinking until there is nothing left but Chad and Tyson. Chad, once so brazen, once so loud, once so full of booze-fueled bravado, feels it. For the first time, in the deepest part of his gut, he feels it. The unmistakable, inescapable truth. He has just made a fatal mistake. The unraveling begins. Chad, once so loud, so sure of himself, now feels something foreign creeping into his chest. Doubt. His body tenses, muscles instinctively tightening as if bracing for impact. His bravado, once booming, unravels like a poorly knotted rope, fraying at the edges with every passing second. The change is subtle, but it's there. In the slight widening of his eyes, in the tightening of his jaw, in the almost imperceptible shuffle of his feet, as if his instincts, despite his drunken arrogance, are screaming at him to back away. And then Tyson speaks. His voice cuts through the thick, suffocating tension like a blade, low, gravelly, deliberate. His eyes never waver, locked onto Chad with the weight of a man who has seen battle, who has walked through fire, who has nothing to prove, but everything to enforce. Mike Tyson, low, firm. I'm going to give you one chance to apologize. One chance, before you regret it. The words land like a hammer, heavy and inescapable. And finally, Chad begins to understand. The laughter from his gang, fading. The crowd's murmurs, hushed. Because for the first time, reality punches through the thick fog of his arrogance. And deep inside, beneath the alcohol, beneath the false bravado, fear starts to take hold. The weight of the moment crushes him. Chad's defiance crumbles, unraveling beneath the sheer intensity of Mike Tyson's searing gaze. When he finally speaks, his voice is barely a whisper, thin, choked, forced. Then, as if scrambling to reassemble the shattered pieces of his ego, he lets out a nervous laugh. It's pathetic, a hollow, weak attempt to mask the fear that now grips his chest, an effort to convince himself and the world that he still has control. His eyes dart to his friends, desperate for reassurance, but their earlier cheers, their drunken encouragement, gone. They stand silent now, their own confidence draining as quickly as his. Still, Chad tries. He straightens his posture, puffing out his chest, forcing himself to look bold, unshaken. But the truth? It's written all over him. The way his shoulders twitch, the way his breathing quickens, the way his voice, though feigning confidence, cracks ever so slightly. And then, he makes his final mistake. Chad, mocking, forced bravado. "Oh, what? You gonna hit me? Go ahead, tough guy. Do your worst." The words hang in the air, reckless, foolish, suicidal. Because Chad doesn't realize what he's just done. He didn't just taunt Mike Tyson. He just gave him permission. The worst is yet to come. Chad's friends, once so eager, so full of reckless encouragement, stand frozen. Their laughter, gone. Their bravado, evaporated. Now all they can do is watch. Expressions once filled with amusement twist into alarm, their drunken minds finally grasping the gravity of what's unfolding before them. This isn't just another street scuffle. This isn't just some guy Chad can push around. This is Mike Tyson, and he is done being patient. Tyson doesn't react. No flinch, no twitch, no wasted movement. His face remains stone cold, unreadable, his posture unshaken. But then, a shift, a single subtle movement. He tilts his head, just slightly, studying Chad, measuring him. The way a predator sizes up prey, the world around them seems to still. The sounds of the city, the distant hum of traffic, muted. It's as if the universe itself is holding its breath, waiting, watching, anticipating the inevitable. The crowd senses it too. The nervous murmurs fade into silence as they begin to press in closer, their instinct drawing them toward the moment before the storm. Because whether they realize it or not, they are about to witness something unforgettable. And Chad? Chad is about to learn why you never ever poke a lion. The world seems to shrink around them. All eyes are locked onto the brewing showdown, the tension thick, suffocating, electric. The very air crackles, not with sound but with something heavier, something more primal. Tyson's eyes narrow, his gaze locked onto Chad, unwavering, unblinking. He's not angry. He's not flustered. He's calculating, weighing his options, deciding how this will end. And in the hushed stillness, a voice carries through the crowd, barely above a whisper, yet it slices through the silence like a blade. An elderly flower vendor, her hand still clutching her basket, leans toward her neighbor. Elderly woman, whispering. He has no idea who he's talking to. Her neighbor, eyes wide, pulse quickening, gives a slow, shaky nod. Neighbor, muttering. This idiot's about to learn a lesson the hard way. The words linger, sending a shiver through those close enough to hear. But Chad? He hears nothing. His arrogance blinds him, his drunken bravado insulating him from the chilling reality pressing in from all sides. He's still too consumed by his own false confidence, too lost in the illusion that he's in control. He thinks this is still a game. He thinks he still has the upper hand. But in mere moments, he's going to learn the truth, and he's going to learn it the hard way. A fool's final mistake. Chad, drunk on ignorance and bravado, takes a step forward, closing the last bit of distance between himself and disaster. His eyes narrow, his hands ball into fists, and then he makes the worst decision of his life. With a clumsy, reckless jab, he presses his finger into Mike Tyson's chest, a pathetic, half-hearted attempt at provocation. Chad, mocking, "Come on, tough guy, let's see what you've got." The impact? It's nothing. A finger against Tyson's chest is like a leaf falling against a boulder. Insignificant, meaningless, a whisper of a touch against an immovable force. But what happens next happens in an instant. As if a switch flips, Tyson moves. Lightning fast, precise, effortless. A hand, massive, powerful, snaps out. And before Chad can even blink, Tyson's grip is around his wrist, unyielding, crushing, a vice made of flesh and bone. The crowd gasps, a sharp intake of breath, as if the very city itself felt the shift. And in that one singular moment, Chad finally understands. He isn't in control. He never was. And now, he's about to pay the price. A single twist, a world of pain. With a flick of his wrist, effortless, calculated, merciless, Mike Tyson moves. Chad's arm bends at an impossible angle. A low, sickening crack echoes through the air. And then, the scream. A guttural, unrestrained cry of pure agony rips from Chad's throat. His knees buckle, his body collapsing under the unbearable pain. His once smug, arrogant face is now a mask of torment, twisted beyond recognition. The crowd? They explode. Cheers erupt, a wave of excitement surging through the spectators as they watch Chad's humiliation unfold in real time. They had seen the warnings. They had heard the whispers. And now, they are witnessing the lesson. Tyson stands over him, unshaken, unmoved, a force of nature. His face, still unreadable, remains a mask of unyielding calm. But then, a shift. Slowly, he leans forward. His lips curl just slightly, not in anger, not in rage, but in something far more terrifying. A predatory grin. And then, in a voice so low, so cold, so final, he speaks. Mike Tyson, quiet, lethal. You wanted my attention? Now. You've got it. Chad sobs. Tears stream down his face, writhing in pain, his mind finally catching up to what his body already knows. He lost. And worse, he never even had a chance. Crushed, defeated, helpless. Chad lies crumpled on the ground, his body racked with pain, his arm still trapped in Tyson's vice-like grip. And then, Tyson speaks again. His voice rises slightly, still calm, but now carrying the unmistakable weight of finality. Mike Tyson. Firm, unwavering. If I ever see you put your hands on someone like that again, I will finish what I started. Understand? The words land like a hammer, shattering any remnants of Chad's false bravado. But Chad's pride, already in ruins, refuses to accept defeat. His mind, clouded by pain, humiliation, and sheer stupidity, lashes out one last time. With a wild, desperate swing, he throws a punch. His arm, weak, frantic, reckless, thrashes like a fish gasping on dry land. A pathetic attempt at retaliation. And Tyson? He barely even acknowledges it. His reflexes, sharpened by years in the ring, effortlessly evade the blow. No wasted movement, no unnecessary effort. He dodges with fluid precision, his body shifting almost preternaturally, as if he had already seen the punch before it was thrown. And the force of Chad's wild strike? It's about to cost him. The final, desperate struggle. Chad's own momentum betrays him. His reckless punch throws him off balance, his body lurching forward, his stance completely broken. His face, a contorted mess of fury and embarrassment, twists in frustration as he realizes just how powerless he truly is. And Tyson? He barely moves. Effortless. Untouched. Untouchable. Chad's swings grow sloppier, weaker, more desperate. But Tyson doesn't even have to try. He flows like water, weaving around the attacks with a grace that makes the entire exchange look laughable. His expression, unchanged, unbothered, unmoved. Mike Tyson, mocking, bored. That all you got? You hit like a girl. The words land harder than any punch Chad had managed to throw. His face flushes deep red, a mix of humiliation, rage, and pain. But his pride, tattered, broken, but still clinging to delusion, drives him to try one last time. With a grunt, he swings again. This time with his other arm. A final, wild, reckless shot in the dark. A punch that will never land. Because he's already lost. And Mike Tyson? He's about to end this. The breaking point. Chad's eyes blaze with impotent rage. No more strategy. No more control. Just pure desperation. With a guttural yell, he lunges at Mike Tyson, abandoning all pretense of skill or technique. His only goal now is to land just one hit. Just one. But Tyson? He sees it coming before it even begins. A master of timing, a master of precision. And with effortless cool, he sidesteps the charge. A movement so smooth, so calculated, that Chad looks as if he's diving headfirst into empty air. But Tyson isn't done. With surgical precision, his hand darts out, fast as a viper. A single strike. His fist, relaxed, effortless, controlled, connects with Chad's abdomen. Not a wild haymaker. Not an angry, emotional blow. Number A, perfect, precise shot. And the effect is instant. A shockwave ripples through Chad's body. His chest collapsing inward. His breath ripped from his lungs in a single, painful gasp. His eyes widen in shock, his body folding like a house of cards. Then, he drops. Hard. The impact sends dust kicking up from the pavement as Chad hits the ground like dead weight. And the crowd? They can't hold it in any longer. The silence shatters. Spectators erupt. Gasps, cheers, exclamations. A surge of energy sweeps through them as they process what they've just witnessed. Because they didn't just see a fight. They just saw a lesson. And Chad? He's the one who had to learn it the hard way. The fall is complete. Peals of laughter and applause ring through the street, echoing off the buildings. The crowd's mirth only grows, fueled by the ultimate betrayal. Chad's own friends now stepping back, distancing themselves from their fallen comrade. Just moments ago, they were cheering him on. Now, they scatter like leaves in the wind, their allegiance shifting in an instant. Survival instinct takes over. No one wants to be next. And Chad? He feels it. His face burns with shame, hotter than any punch could have ever made it. His hands tremble as he struggles to his knees, gasping, disoriented, desperate. His bravado, so grandiose, so unshakable just moments ago, has vanished like a puff of smoke. He has nothing left. No words, no laughter, no backup. The crowd senses it too, the climax of the drama unfolding before them. They grow restless, rowdy, their voices rising, some egging Chad on, others mocking him, all of them waiting to see how this ends. And Mike Tyson? He just watches. His expression, no longer amused, no longer indifferent. Now it's cold, not with anger, not with fury, with finality. Because Chad is no longer a threat. He is nothing. And Tyson? He's about to make sure he understands that. The final verdict. Mike Tyson steps closer, his presence towering over Chad, unyielding as stone, immovable as fate. The weight of the moment is crushing, the air thick with finality. And then, Tyson speaks. His voice is deep, commanding, absolute. Mike Tyson, firm, unwavering. Next time you open your mouth, think about the consequences. Words have power. Use them carefully. Each syllable lands like a hammer, ringing with the weight of 1,000 judgments. And Chad? He doesn't argue. He doesn't lash out. He doesn't even look up, because there's nothing left to say. His pride is shattered, his ego in ruins. The fight, if it ever truly existed, is over. He hangs his head, shoulders slumped, knowing, deep in his soul, that he has been thoroughly, irrevocably bested. Not just by strength, not just by skill, but by a power far beyond his own. And the crowd? They sense it too. The show is over. Laughter still lingers in the air, echoing through the streets like distant thunder. But the spectacle has ended. Slowly they begin to disperse, their excitement fading into the rhythm of the city once more. And Tyson? He doesn't look back. With his shoulders slackening, his posture relaxing, he turns away, as if Chad is no more significant than a passing breeze. Because for Mike Tyson, this was never a fight. This was a lesson. And Chad? He'll never forget it. The final mistake. As if to signal the end of the altercation, Tyson begins to turn away. A single step. His mind already drifting to other matters, his focus shifting away from the defeated man behind him. But then, a sound. The faint scrape of feet on gravel. It's small, almost imperceptible, but Tyson hears it. And in the split second it takes for the crowd to process what's happening, their mouths drop open. A collective scream erupts. A warning. But Tyson needs no warning, because his instincts react before his mind even registers the threat. A single, fluid motion. He spins, his body moving like a coiled spring unleashed. A flash of glass. A bottle, sailing through the air, aimed straight at him. But it never reaches its target, because Tyson is already there. With surgical precision, he deflects the bottle mid-flight, a sharp flick of his wrist redirecting the attack with an ease that defies logic. And then, he moves. A symphony of agility and brute force. His body snaps into action, his speed almost supernatural, and in the next instant, the fight is no longer over. But this time, Tyson isn't holding back. The final reckoning. Tyson spins around, his reflexes lightning fast, inhumanly precise. A single movement, deadly, effortless. He snatches Chad's wrist mid-swing, stopping the attack before it ever begins. The beer bottle slips from Chad's grasp. Clink, clatter, shatter. The sound of glass hitting pavement punctuates the swift, decisive end of his foolish attempt. And then, before Chad can even register what's happening, Tyson moves. Effortlessly. With zero resistance, zero hesitation, Tyson flips Chad's entire body, sending him crashing onto the pavement like a rag doll. Thud. The impact is brutal. The breath rips from Chad's lungs, his eyes wide with terror as the realization hits. He never stood a chance. Before he can even react, Tyson is on him. His weight presses down, solid, immovable, pinning Chad to the ground like a butterfly under glass. The fight? It's over. And now? Tyson delivers the verdict. His breath, steady, controlled, measured. He leans in closer, his presence looming, suffocating. Mike Tyson, low, deliberate. You had your chance. Each syllable, a sentence of its own. Each word, a final nail in Chad's coffin. And now, Chad is forced to face what he's tried so desperately to ignore. The truth. He never had control. He never had power. And now, he has nothing left. The final warning. Tyson's gaze is unflinching, unreadable. His expression bordering on indifference, yet carrying a menace that demands obedience. And then, he speaks. His voice, calm yet absolute, delivers the sentence. Mike Tyson, low, controlled. That's strike 2. You don't want strike 3. The words hang in the air like a death sentence. Chad's breath quickens. His eyes dart left, then right, scanning the crowd, the pavement, the open air, anywhere for an escape. But there is no escape, because the weight pinning him down isn't just Tyson's body, it's the weight of his choices. Tyson's voice hardens, each word cutting deeper than any blow ever could. Mike Tyson, sharp, final. Let this be a lesson. Next time you cross someone's path, remember this moment. And then, the sirens, at first distant, a faint howl in the wind, as if summoned by the very air itself. Then, louder, closer, unmistakable. The streets vibrate with their wail, the flashing red and blue lights dancing against the pavement, slicing through the tension like a blade. The crowd shifts, murmurs, some stepping back. The lesson has been taught. And now, justice is about to arrive. The breaking of a man. Chad's face, contorted with fear, desperation written in every line, is now a far cry from the cocky bravado he wore just minutes ago. And then, he breaks. His words spill forth like a dam bursting, tumbling over one another in a frantic, incoherent plea. Chad, high-pitched, desperate. Please, please, let me go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The crowd watches, silent now, witnessing not just Chad's defeat, but his complete collapse. Tyson? He doesn't gloat. He doesn't sneer. Because for him, this was never about revenge. This was a lesson, and the lesson has been taught. With one swift movement, he rises to his feet, his face betraying no emotion. He doesn't even look at Chad as the beaten man scrambles to his feet, his breathing ragged, uneven, his entire body trembling with the shock of what just happened. Then, the sound of boots on pavement. The police arrive. Their faces are solemn, purposeful, their presence a signal that this altercation has officially reached its conclusion. One officer, his expression softening at the sight of Tyson, steps forward. His eyes flick between the battered Chad and the unshaken legend standing before him. And then, finally, he speaks. Respect meets authority. The officer, his voice heavy with reverence, speaks with the weight of someone who understands exactly who he's addressing. Officer, firm, respectful. Mr. Tyson, we're here to help. What seems to be the problem? Tyson, cool and collected, offers no dramatics, only facts. His demeanor remains steady, his voice measured and precise, his words sharp and economical, painting a picture of the altercation with undeniable clarity. Mike Tyson, calm, unwavering. This young man, gesturing to Chad, has been causing trouble. He assaulted me, unprovoked. There is no room for debate, no exaggeration, no unnecessary details, just truth. Chad, still gasping, still shaken, doesn't dare interrupt. And the officer? He nods gravely. His eyes lock onto Chad, filled with disapproval, annoyance, authority. Officer, flat, unimpressed. We've had complaints about this one before. The meaning is clear. Chad isn't just some guy who made a mistake. He's a repeat offender, a problem. And now, he's about to face the consequences. Justice served. The officer's voice remains firm, reassuring, absolute. Officer, steady, authoritative. Don't worry, Mr. Tyson, we'll handle it. And just like that, it's over. The other officers move in, their actions swift and practiced. They know Chad's type. Grabbing him by the arms, they secure his flailing body, his desperate protests falling on deaf ears. The crowd, a sea of nodding heads and approving murmurs, watches as Chad is led away, defeated, humiliated, finished. Officer, calm, final. Come on, son, let's go. Chad struggles, but his resistance is futile. His arms are wrenched behind his back. The cold steel of the handcuffs snaps shut. And then, the walk of shame begins. The officers guide him toward the waiting police vehicle, his body jostling against their grip, his futile writhing doing nothing to change his fate. The only sound? The clink of metal, the shuffle of feet against pavement, and the slow, fading roar of the crowd, their energy receding like a tide, carrying with it the last echoes of Chad's fall. Because now, there is nothing left to say. The lesson has been learned. And Mike Tyson never had to throw a second punch. A last, desperate plea. As the police lead him away, Chad's face burns crimson, a mixture of humiliation, rage, and shattered pride. And yet, he still doesn't know when to quit. His body jerks against the officer's grip, his voice quivering with fury as he shouts one final, empty threat. Chad, spitting, desperate. This ain't over, you hear me? You can't get away with this. But his words land on deaf ears. The officers, unmoved, uninterested, don't even acknowledge his outburst. And Tyson? He doesn't flinch. Because this was never a fight to him. Because Chad never mattered. As the police car pulls away, its tires rolling over the pavement, the moment shifts. A pause, then an eruption. The crowd, pent-up energy finally bursting loose. Cheers. A chorus of applause fills the air, echoing off the buildings. Some whistle, some shout words of encouragement, their voices ringing through the warm afternoon air, celebrating the lesson that had just been delivered. And Tyson? He doesn't bask in the attention. He simply turns away, his expression calm, his focus shifting to something more important. A sketchbook, scattered across the ground, belonging to Jamal. With a gentle hand, Tyson bends down, picking it up. Because despite everything that had just happened, he never forgot what truly mattered. The real victory. Amidst the discarded churro wrapper, amidst the scattered remnants of Chad's shattered ego, Mike Tyson kneels down. His fingers brush over the worn cover of Jamal's sketchbook before gently placing it back into the boy's hands. And then, with a voice soft, fatherly, reassuring, he speaks. Mike Tyson, gentle, firm. You're a good kid, Jamal. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Jamal nods, his small hands gripping the book tightly, as if holding on to more than just paper, as if holding on to a lesson, a memory, a moment that will stay with him forever. And then, a voice. The elderly woman, a bystander turned witness, a face in the crowd now carrying the weight of the moment, steps forward. Her eyes shimmer with gratitude, the lines on her face etched with years of wisdom. She clutches the handle of her flower basket, fingers tightening as if holding onto a lifeline. And then, with sincerity, with emotion, with deep, heartfelt appreciation, elderly woman, voice trembling. You're a hero, Mr. Tyson. A real hero. Thank you. The words linger. The crowd watches, waiting for Tyson's reaction. But he doesn't stand tall, bask in the applause, or soak in the praise. Instead, he shrugs. Bashful. Humble. Genuine. Mike Tyson. Soft, sincere. Just doing what anyone should do, ma'am. Then, with a small nod, the kind that says more than words ever could, he finishes. We all gotta look out for each other. Because for Mike Tyson, This wasn't about a fight. It was about doing what's right. The lesson lingers. With a final wave and a small, knowing smile, Tyson turns away. No grand exit. No fanfare. Just a man, walking forward, his peace restored. His leisurely stroll resumes, just as it had before, as if the entire altercation had been nothing more than a brief pause in his day. And behind him, the neighborhood still buzzes. People whisper, they nod, they exchange glances, knowing they've just witnessed something unforgettable. An act of bravery, of strength, of unwavering principle. One that will be retold, remembered, etched into the very fabric of the street. Because Mike Tyson didn't just win a fight. He reminded them of something greater. That respect is not a privilege to be granted, but a fundamental right to be upheld. And for those who seek to violate that right, for those who would use fear, intimidation, and violence to take from others, there will always be people like Mike Tyson, people willing to stand against them. And as Tyson fades into the distance, his lesson remains. A reminder, a warning, a testament to what real strength looks like.